The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Welcome, everybody. This is Bob Hollis. I see a lot of familiar names here. Really glad to have some of you back that we've had in class in the past, and a lot of new names as well. We have more than 120 people registered. So uh, let me know if you're having any trouble with hearing me, any audio. Please let me know. You can raise your hand or contact me through chat, or better yet, post a question. So to get us started here, I just have a few quick housekeeping things. One is going over how to use the webinar system. So what you want to do is make sure that you're able to access this panel. The webinar is being recorded, and so I'm going to post it up on a website where you'll have access to it. All attendees are muted by default. As I mentioned, we have more than 120 people signed up, and so if we had people coming in unmuted, there would be a lot of background noise, making it difficult to hear. But I encourage questions. That's what we're here for. No question, you've probably heard this before, but no question is stupid. No question is dumb. We're here starting right from scratch. Some people have built websites before. Other people have no clue where to even start. And we're here for everybody. So ask any question you have in mind, no matter how simple or complex, and we'll get it answered. To ask a question, you'll type it into the webinar panel here. So just type your question in and hit send, and that will come into a panel to me. I'm going to leave a little time at the end for questions, but I encourage asking questions as they come to mind. And that way, if we might cover it in the webinar, but that way if we don't, I've got a record of the question that was submitted, and I'll try to answer all of them during the webinar. But if we run out of time, I'll have a log, and I'll get back to everybody with answers to any questions that we don't answer during the webinar. If by chance you're unmuted to speak, which I wouldn't anticipate, but just in case, please don't use a speakerphone, or you'll get feedback that could cause problems in the audio. If your panel seems like it's disappeared, just look for the little orange box, the flyout tab with the white arrow, and that'll open the panel back up. So you can get it out of your way by clicking that arrow. That'll collapse it or open it up. And then if you're unmuted by an organizer, please mute yourself after you're done speaking, and that'll be here. Any messages from presenters will appear in your notification box. And again, please submit questions through the control panel. So those are the basic concepts on how to use the webinar system. And now let's take a look at what we'll be working on. So this is our course description. We'll be meeting every Wednesday for 2 hours. Don't worry about missing sessions. This isn't like a community college class where you're getting a grade or anything like that. This is all for you. So if you can make it, you can make it. If you can't, you can't. It's not like you're getting a grade, or I'll take it personally. People have busy lives. That's why we decided to do this series in the evening. This is, I believe, the 4th time I've done this series for California Capital. And it's been popular. We run out of room space, which probably holds about 30. And as I mentioned, now we've got over 120 registered, and we can take up to 1,000. So feel free to invite any friends. It's free for everybody, thanks to California Capital. And let me talk about that for a minute before we go too much further. Normally, California Capital does an introduction at the beginning of the classes that we do on site. And so since we're not on site, I'm going to take that responsibility myself and tell you a little bit about these services. So California Capital is a really wonderful community resource, as I'm sure many of you already know. And I'd invite you to visit the website, which I now manage for California Capital, as well as doing these classes. But take a look at their loan programs here, business assistance, these types of programs, a lot of information on learning how to work with government agencies to gain contracts for yourself, and a calendar of workshops through which many of you probably heard about this event. And so it's really wonderful. And you can go through that and learn what you can get from California Capital and get to know some of the people there. Really great organization. And one of the reasons I bring that up is I volunteer to do this. I've been doing it for, I think, 3 or 4 years now, and I do a whole series of classes that I really enjoy because of the people I meet and the opportunity just to support the community. So though I'm volunteering, California Capital needs to stay funded to be able to help support these types of services. And the reason I bring that up is that you have handouts that you'll see are able to be downloaded from the system. And so there's 3 of them there. One is my bio, just so you have some information on my background. You'll probably hear me talking about examples of things that we do with websites coming from a dozen different perspectives, and might wonder how I have knowledge of those. If you read my bio, you'll see that my background and educational background are pretty diverse. And I'm happy to give any advice that I can during these sessions to help people out. Now, the most important part, though, is the SBA training evaluation form. So that form is how California Capital gets some credit for this. So what happens is when you fill out that evaluation form, one, I get some feedback and California Capital gets some feedback to let us both know if the materials that we're delivering are of an appropriate level and useful and in a way that's easy to understand and offer opportunities for us to improve. I'm always looking for positive feedback to help do things better. And so filling out that form, though, allows them to turn those into the SBA, showing that they're providing these services. And for each amount of time that I donate, they get matching funds to help keep these programs going. And so I'm happy to do my part. I'll just ask that in lieu of payment, which obviously there's no payment for any of these courses for you, just please remember to turn in that evaluation form after each session. And that would go to Sophia Kanan at California Capital. And at the end of the webinar, I'm going to send all of you her email address so that you can complete the form and email that to her, hopefully right after the class session. Thank you for that. So with that being said, let's go back and talk about what we're going to be covering here. And in regards to questions, as I said, send them as they come to mind. And if there are any, I see a couple comments have come in from someone. Thank you, Katrina. Good to have you here. But if you have questions, I'll try to answer them while we're in that topic. If it's a lengthy answer or something more complicated, I might want to get back to you after the session's end. But let's quickly review what we'll be covering in the course. And for today, overall, it's an orientation to what we're going to be doing, so you get a broad view of what we'll be covering over the 8 weeks. And you might find that one of the sessions is very important to you, so you want to make sure you attend that one, and others might not be of interest, and so you might want to skip that one. But feel free as you see fit. Once you've registered for one course or one session of the series, you're automatically registered for all the sessions. So you will automatically get reminders. I believe we're set for 24 hours before and 1 hour before each class starts. And again, if you're going to miss, you don't need to tell me, not a problem. And as I said, we are recording this, and I'll be posting them on a website for people to access after the classes. I'll probably have about a 2-day lag time. I need to convert the format from GoToWebinar to MP4 and then get them uploaded, probably host them on a Google Drive. But I'll make sure you have access. And one of the things I'll be covering in today's class is showing you a website where you can see places where I've posted in the past. And we'll probably use that same location. Working on a few more projects. I might move them over at some point. So that's a general start. We're going to be covering a lot of different areas. And so sometime between this week and our next class, I'll be sending a survey out to all of you to gain some understanding of what you want to be able to do with websites. And that way I can focus on specific examples. I've got a wide range of clients. I've been building websites pretty much since the web came online. Started as just a fun thing as a hobby and then building them for my own companies. I've been a part of 5 successful startups and in the middle of another one right now that's a lot of fun. I'll share some stories about that. But the reason I mention that is that in each of those I started with no funding, just me and an idea. And a website was the next progression in that series of events that led to success in all of them so far. And I'm happy to share the strategies I've used to do that sort of thing and business advice as well as part of this series. It's just naturally a part of it. The way I think about websites and technology is overall, I'm really more of a business and technology consultant, but I've found that using these tools is the most efficient way to accomplish the most with the least amount of time, effort, and cost. And so that's the approach I take to every business. And I've started with zero funds and self-startup with everything, and then ended up being able to self-fund just from money generated from each of my startups. And I'm happy to help others do the same. That's why I do this. So all of you who are obviously registered, feel free to share this form with anybody else. It's one of the downloads you have available. And again, others are welcome to register at any time and either watch the recordings to catch up or start wherever they see fit that has interest to them. Some of the things we're going to cover. Well, starting with today, we're going to go over the basics of where do you start if you have nothing at all. So we're going to talk a little bit about registering a domain, some of the things to think about when you're doing that, setting up hosting for WordPress, which I'm going to show you how to do because we promised in this in the learning outcomes for this class that it would be from A to Z. So we're going to act as if you want to build a website and you have nothing started at all, and we're going to cover a few of the steps that you would take to get started. But for purposes of this class, I've already installed what's called a WordPress multi-site platform. And so for this class, by the end of today, you're going to be able to, in less than 5 minutes, set up your own website to get started. And I'm providing all the tools in the platform for that. But you'll be able to work through each of the things that we cover in each of the classes and have it as a working lab. And I leave them up. I still have some of the same sites people started in the last few classes in case they want to use them as, say, a sandbox or just a development toolbox or whatever they'd like to use it for. And then in the last session of the class, I'll talk with you about how to download the content that you created and put it onto your own platform. So let's say you don't have your own website yet, you don't have your domain yet, you don't have hosting, nothing set up. You've got all those tools and resources through this class to participate. And if by the time the class ends, you do have your own setup, then you can migrate everything you've done in this class out and then import it into your new website platform. And so you'll have a real live working site that you can come out of this class and be ready to roll. And again, I mentioned that we're going to talk about specific things. So I'm going to be sending out a survey to get a feel for where your interests are and make sure I focus our content on those interests. But some of the things we'll be covering, for example, installation of WordPress plugins. And boy, one of the things you'll probably hear me hype on a lot is how much I hate to bash the web development industry, but I've seen proposals out there for $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 for websites that any of you will be able to build in less than 3 or 4 hours by the time you finish this course, if you keep up with the work we're doing. And I see a question has come in. So if we already have a website, do we need to create one on your site during the class? And no, you don't. In fact, that's great if you've already got a site. We're going to be focused on WordPress for this course, but I also have experience with Drupal and Joomla and other content management systems and straight up HTML sites, which most people don't really use anymore. But I'm happy to answer questions that are outside the specific software that we're covering in the class. So for this class, we'll be focused on WordPress, and I'll talk about why as part of the class. And I see that whoever the person that asked that question does have a WordPress site, so we're good to go. Yeah, absolutely. It's perfect if you've got your own. And if there are specific things you want to make sure we cover in different sessions, just ping me, hopefully at least a week in advance, because my schedule gets pretty tight at times. But I'll make sure that I have content related to exactly what you're trying to do in those sessions. Some of the things we'll be covering, and again, WordPress plugins. If you look at any feature you've seen anywhere on any website, we can do it with WordPress using free open source software. And so some of the things a lot of people want to talk about are security, which I'm big on. I teach a whole class on just cybersecurity. Backups, that's a part of security, and just continuation and ability to recover if you have a disaster. Search engine optimization, which is crucial and can save you tons and tons of money. If you ever register domain, chances are that within a day or two you started getting calls from people trying to sell you search engine optimization services. You don't need those services. Everything that they offer, I'll be showing you how to do in this class by yourself without paying crazy amounts of money for it. And it has a huge impact, obviously. Slideshows, which are a big feature in most websites today, photo galleries, e-commerce, if you want to sell things online, whether they're physical products or virtual products or downloads or courses. I built a lot of online learning management platforms. Google Analytics, you can't manage what you don't measure, so we'll talk about how you can grab data and manage or look at your analytics to gain insights and then make decisions based on outcomes. Maps, which can be a nice feature, including mapping data and mapping, well, there are a lot of different things you can do with maps. We'll talk about those more in the session. Video utilities, other features and functions. For example, I recently built a big real estate website for a company in San Francisco with more than 5,000 rental properties in the Bay Area. So that's a pretty easy thing to do, believe it or not, with all the WordPress plugins that are available. So that's what we'll be covering in session 2. And the dates are all, I thought I had them listed here. I think they changed once. Let's see. So I just see I see a question here from somebody who has a website hosted by Squarespace, which has a fee, and they want to know if they can move that to WordPress in order to reduce cost. And I would absolutely suggest that. There's different ways you can use WordPress. We'll talk about that in more detail probably in the next session. But two basic versions are that you can have a free platform that's somewhat like Facebook. It's a web-based platform with a bunch of pre-installed plugins, and they basically manage all the hosting, and you don't have to worry about much. But your website URL might look something like wordpress.com/my website. If you want to have a WordPress website with WordPress.com installed or the WordPress software installed on a server, the expenses that you would incur are just for your hosting, which can be like as little as $7 or $8 a month. Some even less than that, but you start getting into some shaky platforms, and you probably wouldn't want to put a business site on one of the really cheap ones if you're getting very much traffic. But we're going to cover that. We're going to talk about that a little bit more today. And so what I would recommend if you do have a Squarespace site or a Wix or some other platform like that, you pretty much want to copy your content into pages, into say just text pages. I don't like using Microsoft Word all the time as an example because it puts a lot of cluttery code into the back of everything they do. When you copy and paste, you end up with messiness that can mess with the CSS files or style settings. So but what I would do is just paste it as text only into a document and have that ready to put into WordPress pages, and then look at theme options that would be either compatible, or you can recreate the theme but compatible for WordPress within WordPress options. And we'll get into a lot more of that in the theming part. For now, what I'd suggest is just start with one of the class sites that are available. You'll have your own site. It's just going to be part of a multi-site. And then you can even start doing that now. So you can, during the class, create your theme and work on your theme during the theme sessions and between sessions, and add your content to create pages. And it'll be pretty much ready to export out of our WordPress site for the class and into your own WordPress site. It'll take less than 5 minutes or so once we're done and ready to rock. So session 2, we'll be covering plugins. And that's where it's really important for me to understand what types of businesses all of you have, so I can focus on plugins with features that are most relevant to you. Session 3 of 8, we're going to be covering theming. And there's 2 sessions devoted to theming this time because there's a lot of stuff to cover. In the first part, we'll be covering things like all the free themes that are available for WordPress. So there are literally thousands of themes that you can use for free. In the In the other things we'll cover are basic things like style guides, branding, how to use tools such as Adobe's Cooler to create color combinations that work well together, theme design software, how to determine what a website is built with, developer tools, Firebug, a lot of tools you can use in your browser to help with designing themes. And we're going to talk about ADA compliance, Section 508 compliance, COPA, and other things that most people don't even think about when they're building a website, but that are important. And so I see a question here. Thanks for hosting this webinar, Bob. Does WordPress have the upper hand over Joomla and Drupal? What criteria should we be using to decide what platform is right for a site that a client wants? Thank you. I would say that if there is anything you can do in WordPress instead of Joomla or Drupal, go with WordPress. And you're hearing that from somebody who's built more than 100 Joomla sites and probably 50 or 60 Drupal sites. And I say that for numerous reasons, indifferent between Joomla and Drupal. And first of all, I'm not bashing Joomla or Drupal. Like I've said, I've built a lot of sites in those platforms, but they have different problems. One is if you think about Joomla, and I haven't used the latest version because I pretty much switched over to WordPress several years ago. And by the way, I'll take questions on anything, security, anything technical is fine with me as long as we're covering the stuff we need to cover as well. Joomla, there's too many issues with when you're doing upgrades between major versions. So let's say, Joomla 3.5 to Joomla 4.5 or something like that, where you're going up a major step. Frequently you have crashes and upgrade issues, migration problems. Joomla also more frequently has issues where there are incompatible modules or plugins. And by the way, the words plugins and modules and widgets all mean different things in Drupal, Joomla, and WordPress. They have different definitions. But what we're talking about in Joomla, we'll just say is an add-on, like a plugin in WordPress, to keep it simple. And there are more frequently conflicts between those two. And what's nice about in Drupal is, I hate to say it because I absolutely love the Drupal community. These people are all about, let's help the world, let's make it better, let's offer our technical skills to everybody and not charge anything for it. So they're really, really good people. But the problem with Drupal is that a lot of it is codependent on other open source developers contributing. So it's all community driven, where they'll contribute and make, say, a module in Drupal. We'll call that also a WordPress plugin to stay consistent with what we're talking about. But let's say the Drupal version of a plugin, and that plugin relies on 2 or 3 other plugins for all of them to work. And then if one of them doesn't work or one of them isn't upgraded to the latest version of Drupal, now you've got a whole string of things that all rely on each other where one of them is still in beta. And the same people will tell you, no, this is how you fix it. And they'll say, and don't ever use a beta version of anything on a production site, a live site. So I ran into too many problems with that with Drupal and with doing upgrades, where some people are still back on Drupal 6 sites, and they shouldn't be because they're insecure. But they've not been able to upgrade because it would crash their site and they don't know how to do it right. The other thing is there's this thing called Drupalgeddon going on right now, where there was a major vulnerability discovered in Drupal about 2 or 3 weeks ago. And every Drupal site is literally vulnerable right now unless they've upgraded. It's no longer a 0-day. Drupal, obviously, the developers were notified pretty quickly and started working on a fix right away. But anybody who has not updated the Drupal site, which is probably a majority of Drupal sites, is vulnerable and their site could be hacked. With WordPress, those aren't as many issues with that. When you upgrade with WordPress, you can even set it up to be automated. And part of the WordPress ecosystem rules are that you can't develop anything or do any kind of upgrade that wouldn't be backward compatible. So that can hurt sometimes, but they've also got a tool built in where, say with Joomla, I've done upgrades in the past of an individual, again, I'll use the term plugin, but in Joomla there's different things you can put in that could be called different things, but we'll call it a plugin to be consistent with WordPress, and it would crash the site. However, when you go to do that in WordPress, then it won't crash the site because WordPress will test it first. And if that update or the installation of a plugin would cause conflict with any other plugin that you've got installed, it'll automatically not do it. And it'll tell you that it did not complete an upgrade because it found an incompatibility that crashed the site. And so it's a lot safer and a lot easier for people to use, and you can automate the process. I see a couple more questions here, and I'll address those quickly, and then we'll move back through the agenda and keep going forward to stay on track. So one is, do you recommend using AWS to implement WordPress? That depends on the level of experience and the level of technical comfort. I can see from, oh, bear with me here, I'm hearing some background sound. Let me see if I can detect where that's coming from. Okay, we're good. Though I see that Debbie Muramoto has joined us, so let me pause for a moment and see if Debbie would like to say a word or two. Debbie, do you hear us?
I can hear you, Bob. Can you hear me?
Yes, yeah, you sound great. Welcome, and for those of you who don't know, Debbie is the person responsible for all this great programming and all the great work over at California Capital. So I'm going to mute myself for a minute and let Debbie say a few words to welcome you. And Debbie, just so you know, I covered briefly at the beginning the importance of completing the survey for the SBA, and they have that available for download. And I've instructed them to email those to Sophia at the end of the session, and I'll be providing them her email address before we finish up here.
Perfect.
So with that, I'm going to mute myself and welcome, Debbie.
Thank you, Bob, very much. Hello, everybody. Welcome to class number 1 of a series of 8. I just want to take just a moment to thank Bob Hollis for everything he's done to help the small businesses that come through our programs. We put over 4,000 small businesses through our programs every year, and Bob is responsible for helping a number of them. Many of you help with your websites. I know I was listening in earlier, Bob, by phone, and so I'm on the webinar now. But thank you very much for giving the background on California Capital, and I'm not going to repeat all of that. But again, Bob has just been amazing, and you all will get a great deal of information and assistance by attending this webinar series. So thanks, Bob. There you go. Bob.
Thank you, Debbie. I still have myself muted there. So anyway, thank you so much for your kind words and for joining us tonight. You're welcome to hang out if you want to learn more about websites, or let me know if you'd like to say anything more.
Great.
All right. Thank you, Debbie. Okay, so back to handling those couple of questions that I just alluded to earlier. One is, do you recommend using Amazon Web Services to implement WordPress? And to that, the short answer is it depends on your technical skill level. I recognize the name of the person who submitted that question, and I suspect you're using AWS possibly for your BI platforms and for some number crunching. So if that's the case, then definitely. AWS is a fine platform if you know how to use it. It can be a bit complicated for people who are just starting out and using these services the first time themselves, just because of the level of knowledge you should have to be comfortable with the whole AWS platform and all the different services that are offered and configuring them yourself. The services that we're going to be looking at through this program are going to be more basic, where they do a lot of the work for you. And so AWS is a fine platform. I use it for some of my own work in AI and analytical work, but I don't use it for hosting websites for a reason that I'll get to in a little while. But it's not a technical reason or a quality reason. It's more about I really focus on sustainability. And there are two different hosting platforms I use. That one is powered 300% by wind energy offsets, and the other is 100% solar powered, and both based in California. And so that's my short answer to AWS. A fantastic platform if you're comfortable with the level of skill it takes to use it. And from the person who submitted the question, knowing the little I know about you, I think you are. So I would say go for it. The next question is, do you recommend Wix? I don't have a comment on that. Again, it depends on what you want to use it for. Um, Wix and Squarespace are both hosted online platforms that you might think of more like a Facebook type page that you can build out yourself using tools that are integrated right through the front end. The problem is that you run into capability issues. When we take a look at WordPress, you're going to see that there are literally more than 50,000 plugins available for WordPress, and almost all of them are free. And even those that cost something typically have a free version. And so you can do anything that you want with these sites. Somebody contacted me recently because they started a site with, I can't remember if it was Wix or Squarespace, but they operate much the same way. And as soon as they wanted to start doing e-commerce and they wanted to have a newsletter and they wanted to add all these other features, the hosting costs started climbing. So you basically pay for features that in WordPress would be free. So with WordPress, you're going to need hosting, and that's all you have to pay for. And that, again, is typically under $10 a month. Usually you can get something decent for $7 or $8 a month. And that, though, will give you access to host your own WordPress site and add any plugin for anything that you want to do. And that includes, again, thousands of themes and thousands of plugins that you can choose from without needing to pay any more for that. So again, the first part of the theme design, we're going to be covering a lot of the basics and some tools to build those themes, as well as tools that are freely available that you can customize and don't have to build at all. And then I added a second class because there's some really cool stuff you can do. If you look at new, more modern type site designs, you'll see things called vertical parallax, and where sites look three-dimensional and you have layers that slide at different rates of speed to give you an impression of a three-dimensional world. And we'll talk a bit more in the outreach session where we talk about engaging people on the website. And you got to have something good there when they arrive if you want to keep them engaged. And a lot of it's about using psychology and cognitive science to make a website look like a world that somebody is just pulled into when they get into the website and they want to engage, they want to go deeper. And that's done by making it look like a three-dimensional world that you can step into. Here's a question: what's the difference between WordPress.com, WordPress.org? We covered that briefly, but I'll get on it again. WordPress.com is the hosted platform that you can start for free, but you're going to be limited to the plugins that they offer as part of their multi-site platform. What we've done for this class is built our own multi-site platform that works exactly like WordPress.com, using the exact same software, exact same setup. It's a miniature version of WordPress.com just for our class. And that's what you'll be working on. So whatever you can do here. Now, the difference is because I created this one, I can put whatever plugins we want in there. So if you go through the plugin directory and say, hey, Bob, I'm really interested in building a real estate site, you send me the plugin and I'll install it for you so that you can use it for our class. WordPress.com, you're limited to what they offer. And typically you'll have a URL that's like WordPress.com/my domain name, whereas WordPress.org, it would just be my domain name. So that's the difference. WordPress.org, you download all the free WordPress files and you install them on your own server platform or your hosting service. And we're going to cover that today briefly. I don't want to go too deep on people because you won't need to really know how to do it again because of how our class is set up. Okay, so theme design part 2 is where we're going to be covering how to do all these cool new things that you've probably seen on sites. And so things like vertical parallax design and moving backgrounds and slideshows and that sort of thing. Session 5 of 8 is website monetization. So there we're going to cover things like how you can make money doing things like advertising, e-commerce, digital downloads, online courses, YouTube content, any type of content paywall, membership platforms, different type of affiliate programs such as Amazon, eBay, Linkshare, which I think Linkshare changed their name recently, Google AdSense, and job boards. So if you've heard all these commercials for like Indeed on the radio, you can set up a job board that's populated by Indeed, so you don't have to go post jobs every day, but every time somebody comes to that board and clicks on any job, you'll make a commission fee. Or if they come to your site and end up posting a job and paying Indeed for that, you'll make a commission fee. So all you have to do is build your job board, get your domain, build your job board, and then use SEO to get your job board to the top of search engine results. And people start clicking on it like crazy, and next thing you know, there's money deposited in your PayPal account every month. And it's all passive income. You don't have to do any kind of customer service or anything. And so we'll talk about all these different ways that you can then monetize your website. Session 6 of 8, so now that we've got the site set up and we know what we want people to do, then we want to make sure we cover website social media integration. So a lot of people think of social media now like, oh, I don't need a website. I have a Facebook page. Why would I also need a website? Facebook, I can just put up my business page. Well, one is Facebook can change the rules overnight, which they've been doing, and even a bunch of apps don't work anymore because Facebook changed their policies recently. For the better, I should say, around privacy issues, but still not where they should be. But we'll talk about that in session 6. And I talk about Facebook and privacy issues a lot more in our security and online privacy class, but I'm happy to answer any questions people have on that. And then session 7 of 8, we're going to talk about something that's a new part of this class. I had advertised it before and we talked about doing it as a separate standalone class, but based on feedback, people were so afraid of it, they thought they needed to, be able to program a robot to need something like this, and then it might be over their heads. What they don't realize is that a lot of artificial intelligence tools are available right now for free to anybody who wants to use them. And it's not as hard to do as you might think. And so what we're going to do in that class is I'm going to show you some different platforms where you can take things like just a simple spreadsheet. Say you have a spreadsheet for your business or even a Google Analytics report. But let's just start with a spreadsheet where you say you have a restaurant and you know the times of day and how many customer counts you have in, and you've recorded all that. And you know things like weather patterns also. So any different data points that you might have, you can take a spreadsheet like that, convert it to a CSV file, and run it through an engine that's available for free online if you know how to sign up for it. That's the trick, as it's not really put out there for people to see. But it's a major platform where you can process. The free version allows you less range than this, but if you upgrade to the paid version, you can process up to 1,000 different columns of data, different variables, in 1 billion rows of data. So we're talking about pretty large data sets. And what this software will do for you, this platform, will take that data, it'll analyze it and find all the correlations it can find within the data. It will then provide reports for that. And if you want to get deep on it, and let's say, for example, there's one person I know who is working in data, it'll generate the code that you want to use, the R code. So you can put it into the system, and for those who are doing advanced work in coding and programming, you can use that to initially build out your R code and download it and then customize it for whatever you want to do. And for those of you who don't know that and don't want to know that and don't need to know that, all you need to do is upload your CSV file and process it. And when you process it, it's going to give you all these different correlations, and it'll even create a PowerPoint presentation for you that you can then download and print and present to people. So if you've got data on your business and you've got an upcoming meeting where you need to present what's been going on, you can do some really cool stuff using artificial intelligence that is free and powerful and easy to use. And we'll also talk about a free open source system that allows you to build social media bots. So you can build bots that'll scan Twitter looking for specific information and responding to tweets. It can work on any platform that you use for social media. And that you may have heard a lot about the Russian bots, and how they were used to impact elections and influence people. It's basically those same tools, but they're available freely for anybody. And it's not about whether or not you know what you're how to build a bot. It's about whether or not you have something that you can do that's useful with it. And they shouldn't get a bad name. Any technology has either positive or negative uses. It's about what you use it for. It's not the technology itself that's good or bad. So say, for example, you build a bot to just auto-respond to people who comment on your Twitter platform or something like that. It says, hey, thanks for commenting. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Something really simple. That's a bot. But it's not being used to, penetrate or spread fake news, so to speak. So anyway, you can use it for good, and that's what I always encourage. So we'll at least expose you to those tools, let you know that they're there, and open a door for you to continue exploring as much as you'd like to, and seeing how much you can integrate that stuff into your website. Session 8 of 8 is Q&A and review, and that's where we'll cover, well, here it says sessions 1 through 5. It's now sessions 1 through 7 because of the added session for themes and the session on artificial intelligence. So it's going to be 8 sessions this time. And in the last one, we'll review and answer any questions, and I'll demonstrate how you export a course site content to import into your own WordPress site on a different platform. So let's see if there are any questions I haven't answered yet. Okay, here's a similar question about GoDaddy. They host 2 of my sites, and for one of them, I already used their website builder for a very simple site. However, I want to add features like e-payment, newsletter, MailChimp. For the other site, it was built using Muse, so I need to start from scratch. Do I need to pay for the WordPress platform and then upload that to their site? Okay, I'll break that down a little bit. GoDaddy's fine. I don't know if I would use them for, well, one, I usually try to split up my domains registration and my hosting, but that's just a personal preference to keep things divided. General rule is I would suggest not having your host or your web developer control your domain. Keep those under 3 separate accounts, just in case you ever have issues. I've taken over several accounts where their past web developer just kind of disappeared, and they can no longer access their domain. They can no longer get into their website. If you had control over those things yourself, then you could just route right around them and put your site up on a different platform and repoint your name server. And so keep those in 3 separate compartmentalized. And so for GoDaddy, I do have some clients who've hosted on GoDaddy. I've not had any issues. They've gotten a bit better later, adding more features. They do have a cPanel type platform now. They didn't before. That helps a lot. In terms of how much volume and bandwidth they give, I haven't compared. So as long as they're able to handle the site load and the amount of traffic that you have, then GoDaddy should be sufficient. You would not need to pay for WordPress to upload it. If you've got hosting on GoDaddy, and it depends too on how they're hosted. I don't know what their website builder does, but I suspect it works off of a regular hosting account where you pay a certain amount a month for hosting. If that's the case, you should be able to put up multiple sites on that GoDaddy hosting account, and you would just install WordPress basically in a separate file folder on the host. So you can add WordPress, but you do not need to pay for it. WordPress is completely free, and before we finish today, I'm going to show you where you would download that so that you can upload it to the new site, and then just work through it from there. You'll have a platform. If you install WordPress on your GoDaddy account, you'll have a platform ready to get started. And I should add that a lot of these hosting accounts have, because so many people use WordPress. In fact, I'll see if I can pull up a page to show you later how many people use WordPress. But currently, more than 50% of the content management systems on the web are WordPress. And the last I saw, more than 1/3 of the top 1 million sites on the web are WordPress sites. So WordPress, when it first started out, was kind of like a Facebook. It was really limited. It was basically a blog platform. And I think I opened my first WordPress blog the year it came out. But now they've lately become a full-fledged development platform, equivalent to Drupal, in my opinion. And Drupal's good technology, by the way. I mean, the code and everything is really clean, and the community is really awesome. So I wish Drupal were a better fit for more of my clients, but really WordPress is the overall best fit for long-term maintenance and sustainability. And you'll find that everything I do started with being about sustainability. When I first started building websites, it was mostly as a board member function. I've served on more than 20 boards of directors, a lot of them nonprofits over the last 10 or 15 years. And when I got onto the boards, that's one of the first things I did was take over the whole technology, social media, website aspect. And I'd see a lot of these proposals coming in for crazy amounts of money for a website that I could build during a football game. And so I started basically doing that. Every Sunday, while I was watching a football game, I would build a website and get it started for a nonprofit and then teach them how to use it and just turn it over to them and not charge anything. It was more about helping them out. And then other groups associated with the groups I was associated with started asking for help. So the next thing you know, I built probably 30 or 40 different nonprofit websites at no charge, just trying to help people out and keep them from paying crazy amounts of money that didn't need to be spent and keep that money focused on their programs. And so with that in mind, I wanted to build turnkey sites so I'm not stuck on the hook forever updating them, and every time they need help, I'm the one who has to go in and edit a page. I can build a site and hand it off, but once you've got 20 or 30 of those and you've got people calling you every day for help, it doesn't work very well because you can't do anything else. And so I made sure that what I was giving them was something that they could use in-house and learn to do themselves. So every website that I build, I then do tutorial videos on how to use every feature in the website, and then I embed those videos in an admin page. So if they bring in an intern or a new office manager or anybody else, they can go through the videos and just learn how to do whatever they need to do. Okay, so let's see. And yes, looking at the last comment, somebody was talking about using the free platform. They don't want that in their web address and their ads. So you'd have to pay, again, to upgrade. That's the kind of thing I was talking about when you're using those free platforms, whether it's Wix or Squarespace or the WordPress.com platform. WordPress.org, you're in complete control. And so that's once you have it up there, you have nothing else to worry about, and you can control it all yourself, which is the main reason that I also talk about why a website's so much more important than a social media page. I'm going to go through my background just very quickly, and only because it might be helpful for people to understand where I'm coming from, so that they'll know what kind of questions I might be capable of fielding. And it's pretty diverse. So this isn't a bragging thing. I hope it doesn't come across that way. It is positioned for introducing myself to new clients, and this one's a little outdated. So, but still, I put it up there. You can download it and take a look at it if you like. Overall, my undergraduate education is a BS in industrial management with a focus on management information systems, quantitative analysis, and marketing at Carnegie Mellon. And then I went on to grad school at University of Chicago. Never finished that degree. I owned a company by then that was doing well, and I spent most of my time riding around the country on a motorcycle and taking classes at my leisure. Started as a graduate student at large and took whatever classes interested me for a few years. And then I also took graduate courses in environmental management at Harvard. And continuing studies, I still every once in a while take a class at Stanford just for continuing education in different areas as they interest me. But I found that these days I can learn most of what I need to learn right off the web. And I do a just-in-time learning type model because things move so fast that typically the stuff I see at colleges is already behind. The stuff I learn online and from different forums, and everything from Hacker News to Reddit and the artificial intelligence subreddits and that sort of thing is far more cutting edge than anything in college these days because it takes a while to make its way into the classroom. So anyway, that's how I do most of my learning now, but it's a pretty diverse thing. Some of the boards I've served on are National Recycling Coalition. I was a co-founder of the U.S. Zero Waste Business Council, which now has hundreds and hundreds of members, including like Whole Foods and Toyota and Hewlett-Packard, Apple, Microsoft. And the system we created was recently adopted to be part of the LEED Green Building Platform. So now we're incorporating zero waste principles into new buildings all over the country, and rolled out in Canada and China this year, India as well. And that's now part of the LEED system, like the new Kings Arena. And I've served on dozens of other boards, some nonprofit, some for-profit, and I've been elected to office. I served in public office here in El Dorado County. I'm heavily involved in the music industry. I get invited to the Grammys almost every year through clients. And I do a lot of these types of presentations and talks at conferences and that sort of thing. So that gives you some idea of the different types of things I do. This is a bit dated. My newest venture is all about artificial intelligence and machine learning and doing AI for mostly environmental, humanitarian, public benefit missions. I try to channel all my work into only things that have some type of public benefit mission. I did the thing about getting rich a long time ago, growing up in a relatively bad neighborhood outside of a city, and pulled myself up by my bootstraps, so to speak. But once I did that the first time, it got kind of boring. I found that money's only important when you don't have enough of it. And I started giving away most of what I'd accumulated to causes and things that I thought needed it more than I did. And so now I'm back to working for a living, but I enjoy it, and I make sure I only work for the people and organizations that I value, that I feel like they're doing something to contribute to the world, make it a little better. So let's see, any more questions coming in? Nope, not at this time. So I will move on from there. But again, wherever you are, if you're trying to start for the first time and wondering how you're going to pay your bills and feed your kids and pay your mortgage, I've been there. If your business is taking off and you're now at a 7-figure income, trying to figure out how to get to an 8-figure income, it's not the kind of thing my heart's in, but I've been there. And I'm happy to help no matter what phase you're in to get you to where you want to be. So let's see, here's another question. I need to make a presentation with slides. Do you have a favorite site that provides free slides? I need to make a presentation. Oh, that's, I'm not sure where you're going with that. I guess I do, as a matter of fact. It just took me a minute to process the question. One of the classes I teach is also open source software. And so if you use something called OpenOffice or Office Libre, which has moved around several places. It was housed by Oracle for a while. I don't know if Oracle's still hosting it. I think they might have moved over to Red Hat possibly, or to who else took those over? I don't remember who, but anyway, if you use Office Libre, which is an open source replacement for Microsoft Office, they have a really nice community that uploads templates, and so it's a lot like WordPress in that way. I have the one class that focuses all on open source software, which is a pretty cool thing. I recommend you attend that class sometime. But for now, what I'll share is that on that website, for OpenOffice or Office Libre, there are hundreds and hundreds of presentations and templates for spreadsheets and that sort of thing that people create and then upload to just share with the community. So that's what I would probably go with. Now, what I typically do if I'm doing a presentation these days is I don't even do it as a PowerPoint. Well, one, I don't do anything as a PowerPoint, really. If you ever do create in PowerPoint, I highly recommend converting it to PDF for multiple reasons, most of which is that PDFs crash a lot less than Office does or PowerPoint does during your presentation. They take up less resources. They can also open easily on any platform, whether somebody's on an Apple, Linux, or Microsoft-based operating system. And with PDFs, you can just do a lot more with them. One thing you'll lose, though, is animation if you've got that in. The other way to do it is do a website and just record the whole thing, and you do it as a video instead of a presentation. And in general, because I lean towards open source options when available and capable, I tend to use Office Libre or OpenOffice tools more than Microsoft tools. And those OpenOffice tools will provide access to some free templates for you and some slides. So enough about all of that, but it's available there just for reference, and you'll have an idea of whether or not I'm a suitable person to ask whatever questions you might have. If you need to know something about the biology of flowers, I'm not your guy. But if you need to know anything about how to use technology to leverage nothing into a 7-figure income, I've done it multiple times, but not at this time. So again, that's not bragging. Those were days of yore. Now I make a much more towards average income, we'll just say, and I work for a living. so I'm not the guy talking about how rich he is. I'm talking about a guy who knows how to get rich and has been there before, but is no longer there by choice overall. But as silly as that might sound, I'm pretty happy about it. So anyway, let's talk more. So I'm going to reduce this. We're going to come back in a few moments to look at WHM. And I noticed that it's 7:25. About at 7:30, we'll probably take like a 5-minute break just so people can refill their coffee cups. I'm probably putting a lot of you to sleep by now, or take a bathroom break, whatever you might need. You can even eat crackers since you're muted online. And I'll keep watching for the questions to come in. But let's keep moving here. And one of the first things I want to show you, this was just again the California Capitol site. This is where I've been storing presentations in the past. So if you come on to this site, and I'm going to send this link out through our chat box to everybody right now. So let me get in here to chat, and you'll see a little indicator come to you that shows you that you've received a message there. And what I'd recommend for any of these is whenever I send a link, if you want to be able to find it again, open up the link now and then bookmark it and maybe save a folder in your bookmark toolbar that is for this class. And so each time I send a link, bookmark it and save it into that folder. And that way it'll be easier for you to reference in the future. Let's see. Okay. Somebody asking questions about Quantum S3. Yeah, that's a fun project we're working on in Pittsburgh, and my business partner in that is currently down in DC. It looks like we're going to assign a nice project down there this week with one of the federal agencies. So I know you've the person who asked that question. I try not to say names just to keep people's privacy intact, but I think you've emailed me before about us possibly getting together, and you're not that far from me. So let's do that. We'll connect by email, and I'd be happy to grab a cup of coffee for you. And I'm interested in hearing what you're doing as well. So back to here. So you've got the link now. And this is where you'll see even presentations I've done in the past. I met some of you at the Capital Region Technology Industry Day, and that's where we presented, and my session was on working with local government. So if your business is related to that and you're trying to get to into local government, feel free to take a look at there and see how you might be able to do that. Here's another, this one's on the open source software, so feel free to take a look at that presentation. Here's one on cybersecurity, online privacy, and I've got a few resources there. And down here is where you'll find the web development series. The recordings that are there now are from last year, from 2017. So what I'll be doing is updating to the most recent version as we complete these sessions. So you can see before we only had 6 sessions, it'll now be 8. And as we complete them, I'll be updating this page, and that's where you can come to review the video. I don't really do PowerPoints because it's, well, I like showing things live, and so you'll have the recording, but there won't be a PowerPoint there. You can look through it, though, as you need. All right, so that's how you get to the resources, and this is where I'll be uploading. When people have asked if I'll be recording, I hesitate to promise anything because sometimes a recording fails or Citrix file gets corrupted or something like that. So I'll just tell you I'm making my best effort, and 99.9% of the time it'll go fine. But I have had 1 or 2 instances over the years where it didn't. Okay, so let's go on here. So again, that's where you can come back. So you're going to build a website. Where do you start? Well, one of the first things you need to do is choose a domain. And there's a lot to do that. Well, I see somebody saying there's the link doesn't work, gives me a 503 message. I'll take a look at that. It sounds like a server issue. I'm not going to do it during the class, obviously, but go ahead and just bookmark that, and I guarantee you it'll be working within 15 minutes of the class ending. Oh, and I see someone else saying it did work for them. So it might just be getting hit all at one time. That's actually an old site that I'm probably going to be taking down. I'm doing business under a Mobius Intelligent Systems LLC now, and that's a bit of a legacy site. So if I do that, I'll be moving the files over to my new site, and I'll provide that address. So it looks like some people are getting it, some people aren't in terms of the site coming up. And so I suspect that that's a bandwidth issue, but I'll take a look after the class. And there are things you can do for that too. We'll talk about Cloudflare at one point, And Cloudflare is a free well, it's not open source. It's a free content distribution network that creates a layer between your site and between the browser and the server, and allows the site to take a lot of heavy traffic. I use that for some of my magazine websites that get, sometimes 50,000 visitors per hour. And Cloudflare keeps us online at all times. Let's see. So I've got one here. Here's somebody who said they want to be able to retire next year and set up an educational website that allows for CE credits in my industry, residual income. Okay. Yeah, I would say absolutely. And one of the questions is this an appropriate course to help me understand this and how to hire someone to help me? And I will tell you that if you pay attention in the class and it makes sense to you, you won't need to hire anybody to help you, because I've built platforms like that. One of my companies that I'm currently engaged in, and I'm 50% shareholder, is an educational platform for the environmental industry. And we have a lot of people taking courses right now from the city of LA. And there are free options to set up courses like that. It's overall what you're talking about is an LMS, which is a learning management system. And WordPress has numerous options available for free software that will allow you to set up a learning management system and create all of your own content. And here's someone saying, can you say that again? I'm going to say that again because I don't know what you're referring to. Sorry to be a smart aleck, couldn't help myself. But if you want to type in specifically what you'd like me to repeat, I'd be happy to do that. And here's a question about mentoring. I'm sorry, I have done that a lot in the past, and I try to keep up with that. I always want to stay engaged. But as I mentioned, there's now 127, I think, the last time I looked, people registered for the class. And with me being a principal in 2 startups right now, my time really is limited. So I apologize. I try to never say no, but I will answer any questions I can during the class, and I'll be happy to respond to email and that sort of thing. But I couldn't commit to being a mentor in a regular structured capacity on an ongoing basis. And the content management system I mentioned earlier, overall the content management system we're talking about is WordPress. And I mentioned that when you use a system like that for a learning management platform, it's referred to as an LMS, learning management system, rather than a CMS. And within WordPress, there are numerous plugins that are to create learning management systems. So you'll be able to install a plugin, and with that plugin, you can charge for courses, and you can go out and create all the content for the courses, including videos and quizzes. And the quizzes, you can even set up to be self-graded. And you can have courses set up so that people automatically get certificates when they're done. A lot of different features and functions that come with the different platforms. The very basics are free. If you want to get something more advanced, they typically charge more for the more professional models, and it'll cost more if you're trying to use a SCORM platform, or Tin Can is kind of the new SCORM. For those of you who are not familiar with LMSs, SCORM and Tin Can are typically standards that are required for college level credits if you're going to take distance learning courses. For CE credits, the platform that I built offers CE credits through San Jose State University, and we previously had to deal with Penn State University as well, but they shifted their program around and it made it difficult to work with. So we just went to San Jose State, and they're doing it for us now. So people who take classes through that platform, the platform that I built, are able to get credits from San Jose State. So if you want to do a CE platform, and the one I'm talking about was all built in WordPress. So I'll make sure that that's one of the examples we use. And we can install an LMS. In fact, I think I already have one installed on our course development sites. So you should have something in there already to play with. And if not, let me know which one you want to use, and I'll be happy to install it for you. All right, so that covers the basics. And let's see, LMS allows for certifying who's taking the course test. Yes, it does. And so the LMS allows for people to come in, make a payment, sign up, then you can either approve them manually or have them approved automatically. And then they will be able to take the course and take quizzes and get scores and check off assignments as they're done. You can schedule things throughout at different times and be accessible at different times. And you can have a whole series of courses that tie together for like a certificate program or something like that. A few years back, well, it's been more than a few now that I think about it, time flies, but one of my current business partners was able to take the lead on getting us a $5 million grant from the Department of Labor. And we created the very first associate's degree program in recycling. We called it Sustainable Materials Management or Sustainable Resource Management. The term's in a state of flux right now. And that was adopted by Santa Monica College, Golden West College, and Irvine Valley College. So 3 community colleges adopted that system and now continue to offer that as a program on site on their campus, as well as an online program. And that was one that my partner and I developed with that Department of Labor grant. So that $5 million didn't all go to us. We obviously had subcontractors and other people working with us that got some of those funds. But that worked out pretty well, and we used nothing more than the system I'm going to show you how to use during this class. So the first thing you're going to need to do if you're thinking about a business or a domain, oh, and I see it's 7:36 now. So just in case anybody is need of a bathroom break or a coffee refill, I'm going to go ahead and take a 5-minute break here. So my computer time shows 7:35. It's probably 7:35 and a half. We'll start again at exactly 7:40. And so I'm going to mute myself for a few minutes and do the same. And I'll be back online live in 5 minutes. Thank you, everybody. Okay, welcome back, everybody. We've just been on a 5-minute break for those of you who just joined us and wondered if you were having audio problems. So your timing is good. You're back at the break. And for anything that you might have missed, because we've actually had several people just join within the last few minutes, we will be posting a recording. So if you want to catch up, you're welcome to check those out. And I will resend the link here for those of you, again, who just joined us. So I'm going to send a couple things. One, we talked about at the beginning of the session the importance of submitting the SBA evaluation forms so that California Capital can get credit for funding from the SBA. So the person to send those to is Sophia Kanan at California Capital, and I'm going to send that email address right now to everybody. So please take that email address and save that, or start the email now and just reduce your screen, and you can complete the downloadable evaluation form at the end. And again, that's important because California Capital sends those into the SBA, and they get matching funding for each hour that I donate and for the people that attend. I don't know how much for the people that attend, but I do know it's important. So I'm sending that right now. Okay, so it's SKANAAN@cacapital.org. And now I'm going to also resend, for those of you who've just joined us, the link where we will be storing these files. So we're recording this session. And let's see, today's Wednesday. I should have it up there by Friday afternoon. So save this link, bookmark it for the class, and you'll be able to come back there. And down here under the section on web development, I'll update those dates and update the videos. So that's where you can go to catch up on anything that you might have missed so far. All right, so let's see if any questions have come in while I was gone. One, not able to download link either. I'm not sure what you mean by downloading a link. I'm assuming that means that the link for the resources page isn't open. We've had some reports that some people are getting a 503 error. I know that the files are there and that everything is working. It sounds like the server might be having an issue. So I don't want to interrupt the class to take care of that, but I will take care of it within 15 minutes of the class ending. Actually, better make it 30 because I need to respond to an email that came in from a client while we were on break. So will we receive the SBA forms at the end of the webinar? The SBA forms are available in the section called handouts. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab a quick screenshot here. Mine looks a little different than yours, but you won't be able to see my panel unless I capture it as an image. So that's what I'm doing. So now you probably see it. And so down here, and I can do audience view, and yes, now you definitely can see it. So what I did was I grabbed a screen grab of my panel, since panels don't show to the audience members. And you'll see down here there's a handout section. One of them is my bio, one of them is the course description, and one of them is the SBA training evaluation form. So you can download that training evaluation form. I believe it's a fillable PDF. If it's not, I apologize, and I will try to make a fillable PDF for them. I was going to make a web-based form, but it looks like they have a specific document the SBA wants, so I didn't want to mess with that. Okay, so I also see a comment here that it would be nice to open the chat so that everyone in class can talk. I'm happy to provide a platform. That's a great idea overall. I think interactive communications with other people in the class even is great. The challenge in doing that this time is that there are so many people on. I believe we're up over 100, and we end up getting a lot of background noise and a lot of problems if people start to be unmuted. I need to unmute each person one at a time. So for logistics reasons, oh, let's see. Somebody said they're only seeing the questions category. Well, what I would do is I will send this out to everybody after the webinar. I'll send an email to the address you used to register and make sure that everybody has those forms. But you should see them available there as the download somewhere. I'm seeing the the administrator version of the panel, so I don't have eyes on what you're seeing. So it's difficult for me to respond with precision. But I will make sure that I get an email out to everybody. And as I mentioned before, I am going to create a survey just to get more knowledge about what you're trying to accomplish, and that way I can customize the class for each session that we go through and make sure I cover topics of interest to people. Normally when we do the in-classroom session, at the beginning of the class I go around and ask everybody what type of business they're in, what they want to be able to do, and that sort of thing, and then customize each class as we go. Obviously that's not feasible with this many people and doing it by webinar. So I apologize for that. I miss the interaction as well. It's a lot of fun. But I'm happy to do everything that I can using the technology we've got available here. All right, so, and yes, I see a question. Do we fill it in after each lesson or after all 8? It should be after each lesson for 2 reasons. One is they get credit for each lesson as it goes, and that'll be valuable for me to get feedback on what I might be able to do better and make sure that I'm trying to improve this each time we do it. So yes, thank you for the question, and I hope that's a clear answer. Okay, so let's get back to building a website. So the first thing you need to do, and so many people miss this, I can't believe it, they go to think about starting a business, and they don't look to see if a domain is available first, or who else is using something similar to that. And so if you're thinking about starting a business, people used to think about, oh, we'll start the business, then we'll think about getting a domain, and then we'll build a website. I think the first thing you should do is look for a domain and think about different business names that might be appropriate for your business, and then see if the domains are available. I mean, you don't want to open a business and find out that somebody else has, you know, let's just say bobhollis.com. Let's say I was going to open a business called Bob Hollis. I went and I say, okay, that's going to be my business name. And then I go and look and find out that bobhollis.com, .net, .org, .us, .info are already registered, and everybody has all these other websites up, and one of them does the exact same kind of business I want to do. So you don't want to find that out later in the business planning process. So you want to start looking for domains as part of the business process before you even file your paperwork. And so, or if you're a sole proprietor, you know, however you're going to do it, think about that from a marketing perspective. And then specifically, there are some things to think about in selecting a domain that are important for marketing itself, online and in person. One is you want it to be as few syllables as possible. Now, every word in the dictionary has been gone for a long, long time now. So some people start to use hyphens or something like that. I recommend not using hyphens either, because you want it to be something that you can say and that there's only one way to spell it, and that it's not confusing to people, or they don't have to ask you how to spell it or what it is. And always.com if possible. They're the top level domains. The TLDs are what people go to by default, and it's the .com is the premier. So sometimes you'll go to start a business and you find that somebody's already got the .com. Well, then you can do the .net. Especially if you have a web-based business, it's more appropriate. .org is obviously a good option for any kind of nonprofit. But the .com is what you really want if you can get it. So try to get as few syllables as you can, no hyphens if you can avoid it, and nothing that you have to spell. And so there might be, for example, way.com. Now, if I said, oh, come to waynow.com. Now, somebody doesn't know if that's W-A-Y or W-E-I-G-H. And so if you have to spell it, that's not good. So you want to think about something like that that's pretty clear and effective. One, for example, that you're going to get an inside look at all the tools that go into it, basically is a new platform I'm building out called Chat Badger that's going to compete with platforms like Hootsuite. Where you can do automatic messaging out to hundreds of social media platforms all at the same time and really make your system more efficient. I'm going to be showing you all the types of tools that go into a system like that you can do yourself almost for free. So we'll be talking about those kinds of things. But Chat Badger is an easy, catchy, no hyphen needed, only one way to spell it. That sort of thing. And so those are the types of domains you'd want to have. and then specifically do a search on the domain. And then I'd also, now this is getting out into the business side rather than the technology side, but if you go to the California Secretary of State site, you can do a search on business names. So do a search on there as well and make sure there's not somebody else with a similar name in your industry and geography. Sometimes that can make a difference. If you have a small one-person shop up here and somebody else has a small one-person shop in San Diego, that aren't likely in any way to be confused because they're so far divided geographically, you might be able to get away with it, but you don't want to do that and then find out 3 years later after you're taken off that you have to change your name. And that is obviously a problem for branding. That happened to a friend of mine. We had the fastest growing company in Silicon Valley at the time. I got up to 200 employees very quickly and got funded and was doing well. And we went to college together, and he came up with an idea and created some software and started selling it from his kitchen table in the morning before he went to work at $5,000 a pop. And next thing you know, he was building a new 5-story building in Sunnyvale right on the light rail line and paying cash for it and generated it all himself with what he started from his kitchen table. But then after he got a few years in, he was approached by a very small company that never took off. Turned out they had the exact same name he had, so he had to change his name. But it didn't hurt him too bad. He was already well on his way, but a lesson learned. So do a little bit of homework and try to find a domain that's easy to say, easy to spell, only one way to spell, no hyphens or anything like that if you can avoid it. And I've got a question here. Does hyphen affect SEO? I don't really think so. If so, it would be incredibly insignificant, and I really doubt that it would. And I have to throw some element of doubt in there just because if you study Aristotle logic or math, even proofs and things, I rarely use absolutes. And even then I say I never use absolutes because that would be an absolute. And so what I'm talking about is that Google's algorithm is very complex, and in fact, a lot of times they don't know what it's doing. They had to pull it back because their AI was doing things and coming up with results that were not filtered through humans, that were having a negative impact on things and weren't really right. And I'll just leave it at that. And so they pulled back the AI and started putting more humans into the picture because they didn't know what the AI was doing. That's how complex their algorithms can be. And so they'll change things quite a bit. Now, one way that used to be a pretty much surefire and very easy way to get to the absolute #1 spot on Google fairly quickly is using what's called an exact matching domain. But they started catching on to that, and they saw that that's what everybody was doing. And so let's say you had a flower shop in West Sacramento, and what you would do is create a domain that says West Sacramento Roses, and then you'd have West Sacramento Tulips and West Sacramento Daffodils or whatever else you want, and you can open up one hosting site and have 100 websites on there. It's all about how much traffic and space you have, but some of these less than $10 a month accounts I'm talking about will give you almost unlimited storage space and bandwidth, but you can only use so much of it at a time. It's a little deceptive. If you start overusing your shared resources more than what they consider your fair allocation, they can ask you to upgrade to a higher price server account. So that comes with a caveat. But that's all you really need to do there. So people would open up 100 different accounts or 100 different websites and even start with one and clone it. And then you could take your West Sacramento Roses site and you go through and you totally optimize it for the words West Sacramento Roses, or say Sacramento Roses. So on every page, and then back then you would use keyword tags as well. So every keyword tag and every page and every title and every image would all have Sacramento Roses. And now what do you think is going to happen if they're looking at your domain name, sacramentoroses.com or westsacramentoroses.com, plus all your tags and all of that? Then obviously if somebody's looking for Sacramento Roses, yours is the site to go to. And now you can clone that and you can automate the process of changing all those tags and keywords for every site fast. So now you've got 100 sites up, one for each line of flowers that you carry, each species, and you're optimized to come up #1 for every one of them. And that worked. I know because I did it. And Google got smarter though, and so they start looking for things like that, and they'll ding you for it. But they don't. They don't pay attention to exact matching domain anymore. In fact, it's completely disregarded. So what used to guarantee you, almost guarantee you, a top spot on Google will now be totally ignored, and that might change 3 years from now or 1 year from now. You never know. So we're going to talk about SEO and some examples of how I've done it in the past and things that work in one of our sessions. So I won't go further into that. That's a long-winded answer to the question, but the bottom line is I don't think you need to worry about a hyphen affecting SEO. So again, I can't state that as 100% fact. It could have changed this morning for all I know. But it wouldn't be a big concern. I don't think a hyphen would ever stop me from getting something into the front page of Google. I'll put it that way. And the tools that I'm going to show you how to use that are incredibly simple and highly automated will allow you to do the same thing. So I would not worry about that. Somebody asked about, can you talk about trademark issues and word marks with respect to domain names? That's a really flowing legal issue. And making sure I got my disclaimer here, I'm not an attorney. I've had law classes and I have friends at the Electronic Frontier Foundation and places like that look at a lot of these issues. You may recall years back, I can't remember, it might have been Don Johnson or somebody from Miami Vice who won the first case where a fan or somebody else had registered his name as a domain and he couldn't get it back, and he went to court and I believe won that case in the end and was able to claim that domain as himself because he was a notable public figure, something like that. I don't know the details of that argument, but I know in terms of branding or anything else like that, if you're causing confusion in the market where you might appear to be affiliated in any way with somebody else who has a trademark or service mark or established brand, then they can come after you. But a lot of it's a matter of how big they are and things like that. So like sorry, I'm reading questions as I'm speaking. I shouldn't be multitasking that way. But it's a common sense thing to just try to make sure that you're not going to run into any issues there. Now, on the other hand, there's been issue in reverse things where, say, there was some other restaurant called McDonald's long before the McDonald's chain opened, but McDonald's opens the chain and then dominates the market from coast to coast and is clearly who's identified with that. In cases like that, I've heard where the first person to use it lost the rights or couldn't claim the right because this other dominant force outweighed them in the market so much. And so it's people that make decisions and judges. And a friend of mine, it's strange. I have a lot of friends in a lot of different places, but he was the first chief economist for the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office. And so he thought a lot about these types of issues. And my other friend, John Perry Barlow, passed away recently, was one of the co-founders of the Electronic Frontier Foundation, and I introduced the two of them to have conversations of this nature. But it gets pretty deep and complex. So in general, I would proceed with caution if you're going to use anything related to that. And if you read case law on it, and I have had classes that cover this kind of thing, but I have no legal certification whatsoever. So I'm not a lawyer and not giving legal advice, but I'll share my experience. And that's been that a lot of it depends on things like geography, similarities of business, and whether or not there could possibly be any confusion between two. So if you had one thing that was maybe a newspaper company, covering the recycling industry, and another thing that was covering, the cycles of plant life, and they both had the word recycle in them and sounded similar, a judge might look at that and say, well, these two clearly have nothing to do with each other. And they even have a disclaimer at the bottom of this tree site saying they have absolutely nothing to do with his other business. And I don't think anybody's going to go to the tree site and confuse it with his first business. And so we're going to dismiss this. And again, that's just my current impression. And that's not a legal, recommendation or anything. But those are the kind of things that I know are considered in those types of cases. So I would suggest either avoiding that if possible. One thing, depending on what it is just reach out directly even to the person, send an email and say, hey, you've got a business in Southern California. I've got a business in Northern California, and my name, my birth name, and the name I've been living by and working with, and one of my business by is this. I just wanted to let you know and make sure that we don't have any issues. That I'm not trying to, infringe on your business. It looks like we're not likely to have any overlap in customers. So I wanted to say hi. Is that all cool with you? So might need to talk to an attorney about that first, but it sounds to me like an attorney never wants it to be settled that easily. But that could be as simple as that, just an agreement by email that it's not a problem, or do it and see what happens. Typically, if it was like it's going to be like a take it down or cease and desist, stop using that. So if you could wait and see if you got that kind of order at some point, like my friend did with his Sunnyvale company, and take a chance or talk to an attorney first, which is what any professional, if I were going to say strictly as like some consultant for Price Waterhouse, I'd say consult an attorney. But the reality on the street is it might not be that big a deal. It depends on the situation. Here's somebody, again, another question about, I get robocalls about upgrading Google listing. Is that legit? My first answer is no. I mean, what they're talking about doing is trying to help you get listed in Google. Google crawls the web. Unless you have a Google crawler blocker or something like that set up, it's going to find your site. And the stuff that I'm going to be showing you in this class about how to use things like Google Analytics and what used to be called Google Webmaster Tools, it's now called Console. You're going to be able to do all that yourself. What you're going to be able to do is basically register your site with Google and with Bing and with Yahoo, which you wouldn't need to do, but it gives you more direct control over how things happen and when they happen. And then you upload a thing called a sitemap, and you put that in with your Google tools. And then the free version allows you to command Google to crawl your site at a particular time. So what you want to do is get your site all set up. When I first start a site, I check a box to hide it from Google, so do not show in Google listings while I'm in development. And then I get everything going, and once I'm ready and have all my SEO in place, then I create a sitemap. I register that sitemap with Google, connect it to my Google Analytics account, so it's all working together with Google, and then I can hit a button to force Google to crawl my site at that time when I know it's set up with what I want Google to find. And we'll be talking about what you want it to find and how you make sure it finds it in our session on SEO and theme design. But it comes down to even little things like making sure you have the right titles and descriptions for your photos. A lot of people upload a photo that the name of the photo is DSC_2083, which is like the camera file name. And unless you have people searching on that, then it's not going to work. You'd want to name it, Sacramento Roses 3 or something like that, if we go back to that Sacramento Roses exam. Somebody changing a site constantly for like a biannual event website, that's not a problem at all. In fact, Google likes to see change. It shows that the site's alive. But your keywords are going to be all about promoting the event. And so you can make sure that you're optimizing for that event, and then all that changes are the details so that you still come up high in the search rankings. I've heard Google continue for over-optimizing. Absolutely. And that's what I meant by if you start, for one, they used to allow you to use basically keywords to tell Google what to tag, what keywords to use. But now they'll ding you for things. I mean, people were trying tricks that I call pretty stupid, but again, there was a time when they worked, and that's why people tried them and used them again. And then Google would see them and say, you're trying to cheat. Boom, you're dinged. And that absolutely happens. And it happens with Bing and Yahoo as well. I personally use DuckDuckGo as my search engine, but it can happen anywhere. And we'll talk about DuckDuckGo at some point. It's if you want to keep your privacy, replace all your Google searches with DuckDuckGo. And so it's fine on things changing, and the and over optimizing you don't want to do. What some people would do is things like, let's say you were doing, I'm going to stick to the West Sacramento Roses just to be consistent. Let's say you had that West Sacramento Roses site and your background was white. And we know that Google looks for things like larger font sizes, bolding on certain words, to know that those words have more importance, or in color contrast and things like that. But what people would do is have a white background, and then in like 72-point font, bold, but also white, would put the word Sacramento Roses. So now they're using this, they're trying to basically hack Google and say, when Google comes in, they're never going to have seen bigger font. It says Sacramento Roses than right here. And it would look absolutely stupid, so you do it in white on white so that your users don't see it. And so people were using things like that. And Google figures out those types of tricks, we'll say, and then alters their algorithm all the time to counter for those types of tactics. So the best thing to do is I'm going to be showing you a plugin that updates it, that is developed by a group of people who study the Google algorithm and stay on top of it on a weekly basis. And they update their software and recommendations page by page on your site for using those types of presentations. So it'll incorporate Google's newest rules that they've discovered and tell you how to fix it. So let's see, somebody says, yeah, I am still on GoDaddy because we kind of got drifted off there. So thank you for bringing me back. So I haven't changed the slides. You're not seeing anything that you shouldn't be. But let's go ahead and move on from here. I've been focused on the question bar on more than what we're showing on the screen. So let's move forward and make sure that we cover everything in the next 20 minutes. And the most important thing, or two most important things, one is having you see where you can access the site and sign up for your website and get everything started, and have basically a playing platform, and to give you a broad overview. And the two most important things, though, are getting you able to sign up and making sure that you've got that email address to complete the SBA form again. All right, so you got your domain now. Then you'll need hosting. This is one of the platforms I like to use, and I'll never promote something because I make money on it, which is a disclosure. I do have an affiliate account with them, which means if somebody were to sign up through my link, I'd get some commission, but it's so small, I don't think I even have the link posted. I just wanted to get that out there. I never want there to be any question. But I like them because they're green hosting. They do 300% wind energy offsets, and you can see here you can get a website for as little as $3.95 a month. So I'm not saying that that's good enough. Where you see WordPress hosting, that's really kind of silly. Any platform, any modern platform that's based on Linux with PHP and MySQL is fine for WordPress. But so many people use WordPress that this is what they put out there as more of a marketing thing than anything else. So you can come to a place like this and sign up directly, and you can see their plans. And then here's another one I like. Now, I like these guys a lot, and I say guys, I apologize, gender neutral. I like this organization a lot. And the reason is they're really doing it right. They're hosted 100% by solar power, and it's direct. It's not like a wind energy offset. And they're in a LEED Platinum building in LA. You can see here how much their system saves on carbon dioxide. I met them through a client, and so there are a lot of big organizations that use them. But you really, I think, need a more technical type person to use this platform because they give you a lot of access to the server, but they also expect you to manage it for the most part yourself. They'll do some work for you, but I found that you have access to a lot more, and there's a lot more that you have to know to be able to do it well. So for most people looking for basic hosting, I would say use Green Geeks. And one of the questions that just came in is it easy to transfer your website from one host to another? And I would say that if you use Green Geeks, then absolutely. What you can do is when you first register a site with Green Geeks, they'll migrate a site for you for free. And so all you have to do is give them your login information, and they'll move your site over for you to their hosting, and you don't have to pay for that. That was the question, is it easy to transfer your website from one host to another? And so yes, most hosting providers will move it for you. And it's really simple. It's just, you'll see as we go into a few more slides, it's just a series of files connected to a database using PHP to communicate between kind of the front and the back. Does Green Geeks also register domain names? Yes, but what I would recommend in general is to register a domain name with somebody like either a GoDaddy or register.com. There are hundreds of different registration groups. I would go with a mainstream one that's been around a while, just because some of these are like kind of fly-by-night companies and you don't know how long they'll be around. But some of the bigger ones like register.com and GoDaddy are likely to be here for a while, and they have pretty good product and pricing points. I use GoDaddy just because I've got more than 200 domains registered, and I get bulk registration rates of like $6 a year or something like that. And I'm kind of stuck with them now, even though I'll mention a caveat. I try to, for people who are conscious about these things, some people haven't liked GoDaddy in the past because they had like some kind of risque ads using objectifying women as part of their ads, and their CEO is a big game trophy hunter who was known for showing pictures of himself with elephant heads and things like that. And so some animal rights people weren't happy with GoDaddy, and neither were some women's groups. And so I want to make sure I mention that. But other than that, they have a good service and that sort of thing. And somebody's saying, I'm sorry, I'm new at all this. How different is this than WordPress? So what we're sorting out here is first you need to register a domain, and then you get your hosting platform, and then you loaded WordPress onto the platform. So this is WordPress. And let's see, does Green Geeks provide technical assistance? Yes, they do. They're available about 15 hours a day, and they're always available by chat, but you can get them on the phone most of the day. So being that we're down to like a little less than 20 minutes, I'm going to move quickly here, but keep the questions coming in. I want to make sure we cover everything we need to cover, and then I'll try to get to questions at the end. And if we don't have time to cover all the questions, I'll make sure I get back to everybody. All right, so that's just an example of hosting. Here's another example of hosting, but slightly more technical savvy if you want to use that. And you'd probably want to get one of the VPSs, not one of their plain websites. So this is a better choice if you want access to more tools, server-side stuff especially, and more control over your resources. WordPress, why WordPress? If there's let me see what I can find here. There's some cool tools I use. One of them is built with, and I'm going to show you that right now. So if you ever find a website that is going to that you would like to imitate in some way, you can click built with this little add-on here, and that will show you what the website is made of, or how it was built. So obviously the WordPress site was built with WordPress, but that'll give you a feel for the tools and some of the specific software even that they use. And the reason I mention that is that if you go to built with, you'll also see the built with website that more than a third of the sites on the internet, the top 1 million, are built in WordPress. It's a really powerful platform. Here are some examples. Again, this is WordPress.org. And if you go to WordPress.org, you'll see here, this is just some showcase sites. And I preloaded a lot of these tabs just in case we had any bandwidth issues and my site was loading slowly. Here's a theme directory. So all of these themes are free. There's thousands of them, literally thousands. And when you go to install themes, and we'll talk about that later, you can see here that there's a feature filter. So you can say, these are the types of things I'm looking for, and just select, and it'll narrow down the directory. Here are the latest, here are popular, and obviously these are the most popular just because they were pre-installed with WordPress as their defaults. But you can upload any of these themes totally free, and then customize it to fit what you want it to do. And I'll also be showing you how to create your own theme using software that makes it pretty easy. And one of the questions that popped up here about hosting is, should you get a hosting company that is relatively geographical to your business? I have a local business. I've heard speeds may improve. Yes, but not necessarily the hosting company. You need to be careful about where the servers are. So sometimes you'll have a company located, say, in San Francisco or Sacramento, but their servers are in Denver, Chicago, or Washington, D.C. And the important part is where the servers are. So ideally, you want servers located in your own geography. That's why most of the hosting companies I use are in California. But I'm also going to be showing you how to use Cloudflare, which is a free content distribution network that will basically put a cached version of your site stored on servers all through the cloud, so that when somebody from a specific geography tries to go to your site, it'll pull that cached version from the server nearest to them geographically. So it's still good to target your own local area, but we're also going to show you some tools that you can use for free that provide a free SSL, a content distribution network, hides your IP from hackers, and prevents you from DDoS, mitigates against DDoS attacks, which are distributed denial of service. And I'll cover that in more detail later. So look through here. Here are the plugins. Remember I mentioned more than 50,000, 55,287 plugins. And some of those might be really old and worthless, but there are thousands at least that are very good and powerful. So you can search here to find plugins for any type of feature that you might have in mind. And when I send that form out to you, it'll a link to the form. If you fill out that form, there's going to be a place where you can put a link for any plugin you'd like me to install, and I'll install it on our multi-site so that you can have access to play with it. Mobile apps, so there are mobile apps you can put in your phone that allow you to post to WordPress directly from your mobile device. Here's the support forum. This is where you can go to communicate with other people, ask questions, get technical support. There's a whole community support system there that's pretty strong. And I don't think I need to go into all of this. I would disregard this. Here's Bluehost, DreamHost, SiteGround. These are just different hosting platforms. For some reason, they're endorsing. And a lot of them, again, have these one-button installs. And GoDaddy's probably one. So in GoDaddy, you don't even need to install WordPress yourself. You can push a button, and it'll install it for you. If you want to read about WordPress, here's what it's all about. Very cool people. I've met the guy who started it when he was a student at UT Austin. He's now a musician in San Francisco and living a good life and sharing his software for free just to kind of help the world. So you can learn all more about that here. Now, let's say you go here in Green Geeks and you sign up and get an account. Now, these are some of my server accounts. I've got 7 or 8 accounts of this size with all these servers on them, but I need to because of the number of sites I manage. And by the way, it's mostly been just me. So I've built a business where I now have more than 300 clients, and most of them paying a monthly fee of some kind. And I started with nothing but a computer and WordPress. Well, I started with Drupal and Joomla, but advanced to WordPress. But what I'm saying is you can build a very viable business over time doing nothing more than what I'm going to teach you how to do in this series. And so now I come here and log in on WHM, and that's the web host management system. So once you do that, I'm going to pull this one back up as a PDF for security reasons. Had I pulled up that other page, it would show IP address and username for all these different sites, and I didn't want to show that. But you can see what's here is basically a listing of all the sites that you might have. This is a VPS, so it looks a little different than if you have an individual account, and an individual account wouldn't give you access to all of this, but they'll set up your first site for you and get you started. If you get a VPS, you'll have access through WHM to get to cPanel, and this is where you can come in and create a new account. So it would look like this. This is what your domain would look like. Your IP would show here, your username, contact, email. I'll go ahead and go back out to the website. Then from there, and I'm rushing through this, but it's also because if you need to do it, you can follow the video, and you'll find that it's pretty simple. Most of you won't need to, and I've already done all this for our class site. So you won't need to worry about that. So once you then go into WHM and see what you saw there, then you'd come into cPanel for an individual account. And once you're in here, you open File Manager, and that's where you would load the files that you downloaded from here. So this is the WordPress download. So you can download the whole WordPress software package right there. Then you upload it through File Manager into your system. And then it's going to look something like this when you're done. And that's a very somewhat easy step-by-step process. The only thing that gets slightly complicated is creating your database. But it walks you right through it, where you just choose what you want for your. And I go with a lot of characters and mixing all these things. The most important thing about a password is the length, and you'll never have to type this in again. So go with lots of characters, and it doesn't. You'll still have your weakest link. So this is plenty, and then it'll just walk you through next steps, and you follow along. Save all this information. You're going to need it for the WordPress install, but that's all you have to do. And I'm not going to complete the rest because we need to move at a quick pace here. But it's pretty simple to go from there. And quick response to one of the questions, how many gigabyte does the average site need? It really depends on what you're doing on the site. If you're hosting a lot of videos and that sort of thing, it might need to be pretty large. I mean, I've shot some video that were 50, 60 gig. So it depends on what you're doing. If it's just some images that are small, it's not much at all. And a lot of these even low-cost platforms will offer you unlimited space these days. I would say just to be comfortable, a minimum of 10 gigabyte, but I have some sites that have never gone more than a gigabyte, and they've been around for years and do everything they need to do. I have others that are 50 or 60 gigabyte because they do full backups every single day, including backups of backups sometimes, which isn't really a smart practice, but they do. And all those accumulate. So you really need like hosting that's 5 times your site size. All right. And I saw a comment here. I'm a newbie. I appreciate fewer acronyms, the better. I thank you for that comment, and I will try to do my best. I'm sorry. And I agree completely. I went to a conference once the first time, and after 3 days of hearing the same acronym, I couldn't figure out what it was. It spent me like hours on the internet to finally figure it out. But anyway, I will try to avoid jargon and acronyms. So MySQL, if that was it, is just the name of the database that we're using, software. Okay. Once you install WordPress, then this is what it's going to look like on the dashboard. And so that's the back end of what things would look like. And this happens to be the site we're working on. So the site for the class is this, and I'm going to send this link out. This is bakersfieldrecycles.com, just one of my many hundreds of domains that I am not doing anything with right now. And so I used it to set up this platform for the class. And I'm sending that link out to everybody right now. So I suggest pulling up that link and then bookmarking that as well. And I see a comment from somebody here, I am lost. Are you going step by step? And no, I'm not. I'm not actually setting up a site live step by step because I already had one staged and ready to go. So the action items that you all should take are come to this site, the one that bakersfieldrecycles.com. I just sent the link out to everybody in the chat box. And you'll see a link here for create a student site. And when you do that, you just click the button here. And this is what all of you should be doing to get yourself set up for this class. So let's see, network allows both site and user registrations. So we are good to go. So all you need to do is put in what you want your site name to be. And it's going to show us it's going to show as bakersfieldrecycles.com/ whatever your site name is that you pick. But you don't have to go register a domain for this. Later, this site will be on your domain once I show you how to migrate it. But for now, pick anything you want because it's going to just be an extension of this domain, more or less, and you don't need to worry about if it's registered or not. So, you can pick 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 or something like that. Obviously not a recommendation. Put in your site title. Here where we say allow search engines to index this site, I'd probably say no while we're in development. You don't want a search engine finding you and say, holy crap, that's not very good. So you really want to have your site staged for SEO before you turn it on to allow search engines to look for it. And then fill in the little CAPTCHA here that just minimally mitigates against some bots. And then hit create site. And when you do, it's going to ask you for a username and password. I'm already logged in here, so it's not showing precisely what it's going to show you. It might ask for your name and an email address. I'm sure it will at the beginning of the process. And that's going to set you up for your own website. So all you have to do is fill up that one form, and you're going to pick your username, you're going to pick your password, and it'll send you everything you need to be able to log in. Now, feel free to log in and just start poking around. There's nothing you can do that will hurt anything. I've got this site backed up and it's solid. The only thing you'll be able to impact is your own site that you create. And so you're welcome to go in there and play around if you want to get started, or just play around with plugins, start putting in some pages if it's intuitive for you, whatever you're comfortable doing. And so you should all have that link now. And that's it. We got to everything. So now I'll go back and see if we've got any other questions. No, it looks like I've covered them all as we go. So I'll leave a few minutes for any more questions. And I see someone saying it's not you, but a bit intimidated. I think as soon as you, and let's see, so I think as soon as you get started, it's just a matter of jumping in. It's kind of like the surface tension of water. Once you break through it, you're going to go deep fast. And you'll find that the hardest part of WordPress is just knowing where everything is. And that's because there's so many options and so many different things you can do. And so you can, you can get lost in it. But once you see the basics and get comfortable with things like just adding a page, adding a post, adding an image, adding it to the menu, just those 4 things, which each take less than 30 seconds. Once you get started, you're going to feel much more comfortable. And once you see you can explore and not break anything, then you're going to get more comfortable. And it'll start to become a plaything for you instead of a point of stress. And that's how my 2 kids, my girls, from the time they were born, I mean, I got them both computers and just covered the keyboards in plastic and loaded them up with games and said, bang away. And so they've never had any fear of computers. And now one is about to finish up her PhD in human computer interaction. And it's all about just not having any fear. So once you log in and get in, you're going to be very comfortable with it. And it'll be much easier than you think. Right now, you're getting just a big, broad overview, but we're going to take baby steps each way through. And once you're playing with it a little bit, you're going to see it as a game, not a task, not homework. It's a fun thing to play with, like a puzzle or a painting or something that you're just exploring and seeing what's around the next corner. And approach it as a fun thing. And you'll make progress fast, and there's no downside. It's not like you're paying a bunch of money for a class. You don't need to worry about a grade. You don't need to worry about anything. Just come in and play, and we'll have some fun together. And I'll create a forum. So there's some things I think I can respond to a few questions at the same time. What I'm going to do is I'll create a forum, and I'll invite all of you to join the forum so that we can ask questions in an open space. And when I respond, your question might be something somebody else thought of or but didn't ask, or that they might have asked later. So we'll try to share that knowledge with everybody in an efficient manner. And I think we can all have some fun with it. Yes, it can work on a Mac or PC. Is one preferred over the other? I'm agnostic when it comes to platforms. I love Linux. I wish everybody used free open source software, which is neither Mac nor Apple. They both have advantages in some ways over others. I tend to like Apple better overall, but for not any reasons that would prevent you from using PCs. I'm using a PC right now for this presentation because the version of software for a PC is better. GoToMeetings or GoToWebinar software is better for the PC than the Mac. And so I have some software that will only work with a PC. I have some software that will only work with Macs, and I'd like to play around on a Linux machine. So it's either will work equally well with WordPress. Let's see. So whatever we develop on this site, we can migrate to our actual site later. Yes, and I'll just give one caveat in there. What you would do is you'll have WordPress set up on your new site. And then when you go into this site, you can export all of your pages, all of your posts, all of your media, and your theme. And then you're going to be able to upload those, and it's a really simple process. It's like literally clicking a box and clicking export, and then going to the other site and clicking a box and saying import, select file, and it does it all for you. And so there are some little things like you'll have to go onto your new site and and install the same plugins, but those are also very easy. You'll see by the time we're done with this course that you can install a plugin to add an entire new feature to your website, whether it's a gallery or a video system, in like 30 seconds. It's really easy. You click a button and you upload it, and it's all right there. And then you just add the features that you want by typing them in and clicking. It's all very intuitive. One of the other things I really like about WordPress over Drupal, especially for this level that we're at, but not even exclusively really for anybody, is that things are so easy to use. When WordPress first started, it was intended as just a blog, and it was something that should be easier to use than Facebook. You just sign up, you get a page, and you start typing, and that's it. You're done. It's that simple. And so everything WordPress did as it was evolving was from that baseline. Whereas if you look at Drupal, and this isn't me, this is coming from the guy who created Drupal, that was a platform developed by developers for developers. And so they expect a little higher level of technical knowledge and proficiency, even with PHP, to be able to effectively manage a Drupal site without being concerned about running into a brick wall someday. And so that's why I generally recommend WordPress, one of the other reasons. So that's that, and I think that covers anything. You briefly mentioned Bluehost on WordPress website. Do you recommend them, and have you heard anything negative about their services? Well, trying to think of the best way to put this. Okay, again, it's a social, political issue that was the biggest concern I had, and it's all around both freedom of expression, freedom of speech, and civil rights type things. What happened is I'll get to your Bakersfield Recycles link question in a moment, but let me continue here with the Bluehost response. I have had clients who have used Bluehost. I never had any technical difficulties with them, but one thing that happened was during the political movement to get gay marriage approved in California, there were the people who owned Bluehost are affiliated with a particular group who was against gay marriage. And so they not only put a lot of money into fighting against gay marriage, but they also, and this is the part that from a pragmatic standpoint would affect a website owner, is they took down a lot of websites that were hosted on Bluehost that were pro-gay marriage. And they used their obscenity terms in the TOS, in the terms of service, to justify it. So they decided that anybody who was promoting gay rights was doing something that in their mind was an obscenity, and they took their websites offline. And so people who were involved in that movement, and I wasn't directly involved in that movement at all, but I just pay attention to things, especially from a website perspective and a hosting perspective. And a bunch of people were angry that a company that's supposed to host websites would take a political stance and then just take their websites offline based on that position. So that's the only thing negative I've ever heard about Bluehost. Here's another question about HostGator. I moved all of my sites away from HostGator, but for a different reason. HostGator has generally been okay, but they were having a lot of problems with attacks. And so they have servers based primarily in Utah. They've got a Utah center, and I think their other center is in Texas. And I had multiple accounts on both servers. And the Utah center went down at one point for 4 or 5 days. And the other sites went down so frequently that they gave me refunds of over $5,000 one year. We were tracking it, and they had a 99.9% uptime guarantee. Well, you can probably tell by as much as I've talked here, I put an uptime monitor on all my sites, so I know how much it's been up. And they failed to hit that guarantee by a long shot many times. So every time I started submitting a request saying, I want a refund, I was only up 88% of the time. And then after their hosting went down in Utah for 4 days, and I had clients offline, I said, that's enough of that. And I moved all my sites off of HostGator. But I don't know if that's still a problem with them. I'd also found the greener options, and that played a role in my decision. Let's see. So given a domain name was like 2,400, as long as it was sweet and short, had to add 3 more letters to get it reasonable for $14.99. Any comments on this? I would have liked the shorter name. It's always a trade-off, and it's a matter of if it still meets the other options. Like, is it catchy? Is it easy to spell? Does it fit your business? So I couldn't really give a judgment call on that. But I suspect getting one for $15 instead of $2,400 was a good move, unless you've got a lot of money to spend and a group of investors that are funding all of this, and then you'd want to get everything the best domain you possibly could, almost any reasonable price. Okay, so we've run a little bit over. I apologize for that, but I'll probably always try to stay on a few minutes late to finish up any questions we haven't gotten to. Again, relax, enjoy this class. Don't let it stress you out. It's supposed to be fun. You should be able to sit back with a glass of wine and your window open and just listen in. And we'll try to make it as comfortable and pain-free as possible. No math involved, no coding involved. And if you've ever used Facebook or anything like that, you'll see by the time we're done that this is easier than Facebook for all the day-to-day stuff. And so it's going to take me a few minutes after this because I want to get to, I need to respond to a client that had contacted me through the beginning, during our break. But then I'm going to also get an email out to everybody. I saw a request here from one of our participants. I'm going to get an email message out to everybody that will include all the links that I shared with you today. It's going to include an attachment for the SBA evaluation form. And it's going to include Sophia's email address. So that's the most important thing. If you could just fill out that form and get it to Sophia. And I think they're anonymous. I don't know. I don't care. Please be honest. I want to know everything I can do to make this class better. So just let me know. And I'm also going to be sending a survey before the next class just to get more of an idea of what type of business interests you have and what type of features are important to you, so we can focus our future sessions on things that are of interest to our group. And so with that, I will wrap it up. And I should have this recording up by Friday. I'll send out a notice to everybody at that time as well. So thank you, everybody. I really appreciate all of you being here, and hope we can have some fun and accomplish some good things together. Have a great night.